probably March or April. Then there will be discounts for purchases of books, of Elsevier books, 25%. And finally, 10% discount on the Elsevier web shop, where you have many different services mostly for scientists. And so today's webinar, it's career-oriented. There will be 2 speakers. Deirdre Dunne, who's senior publisher at Elsevier, will speak about benchmark your research and maximize the impact. And then after that, there will be a Q&A session. So you are kindly invited to submit your questions through the webinar interface. You can use either the chat and then send the questions to organizers and panelists, or through the questions tab that you have on your webinar tools, let's say. I will, of all the questions, I will select some of them and I will redirect them to the first speakers. Then there will be a second part, which will be given by Lan Song, who's managing editor at Elsevier, about career planning. Again, during her talk, you can send us your questions, and then there will be a Q&A session just after her presentation. I just would like to close this introductory part by already telling you that there will be a policy webinar on the 15th of March, where we have invited 4 representatives from politics, so from the Commission, from science policy analysts, and also scientists. And this webinar will be moderated by a science journalist. From today, you can already register. You see here the short link for the registration. And anyways, invitation will be sent out probably the next week to all members. So you don't need to copy it now. Having said that, let me hand over to Deirdre, who will start her presentation soon.
Yep, presentation to do. Yeah, you can share your screen. Duna, I cannot hear you.
We cannot. Should you try to unmute your microphone?
Yeah. Duna, you are muted. You can click on unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Deirdre Dunne. I'm a publisher at Elsevier in Amsterdam. I look after a portfolio of environmental chemistry and toxicology journals, so 7 in total. And I run the daily management of the journals, so in terms of the editors, the editorial teams that manage the daily inflow, the editorial systems in place, the marketing of the journals, and the overall ownership and the steering of the journals is effectively run by me. And I want to take you through today part of the educational outreach that we are doing for our authors the last couple of years, because we receive a lot of questions as a publisher on how to successfully publish in the journals. Many of the papers that we receive are ultimately rejected. Just to put those numbers into a little bit of context, the journals that I look after, the 7 journals in the portfolio, receive about 20,000 submissions every year, and of those 20,000, 70% are rejected. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to get published in the journals. But if you look at the number of papers we publish every year, just Elsevier alone publishes over 1 million articles. It's about 1.3 last year. And 70% of all published research never gets cited. So when thinking about how to publish your research, where to publish, which is the correct journal to publish in, there's so many elements that you need to know to take into consideration in making your decision about where you should publish. But more importantly, you need to take full control and full ownership of your own paper. And having your paper accepted in a journal is a wonderful achievement because you've spent so long writing it. But there's another element that comes into play, and that's maximizing the reach of your article. Because when you think about how many millions of articles are published every year, you can imagine that for readers, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. How is the reader going to find your research? And more importantly, how are they going to use it? How is it going to be helpful to other researchers in your field and in other interdisciplinary fields as well? So that's what I'm going to focus on today. I'll just go to the next slide. I'm not managing to scroll to the next slide. Does anybody know why it's not working? Yes, here we go. So the content of the presentation today is how to improve your manuscript, and we'll show you some of the enhancements that we've made as a publisher in the last couple of years, and the implementations that we make to our journals and the enhancements that we add online are all requested by the readership. So we speak to authors regularly, we do a lot of surveys, we source a lot of feedback, and with that feedback we try to make all of the published journals better and more intuitive in their use. In doing that, obviously the format of the article has changed slightly over the last couple of years. I'll take you through that, and some of the tools you as an author can use to optimize your paper. Our online platform is called Science Direct. That's where we house all of our journals, and this is how the journals appear. You see an overview, a table of contents, and we've enhanced the article by having graphical abstracts and highlights. About 90% of readers come to Elsevier journal articles from Google or other search engines. So it's not customary that people will go specifically to Science Direct to look through the table and contents of a journal. Readers land on an article page or on a table of contents page to see the graphical abstracts, to see what catches their eye in terms of keywords, the article title, to try and find the exact article that they're looking for. So by providing as much information as possible on the title page, we attract readers in this way. In addition, we've been really adding a lot of information to our journal homepages in the last couple of years. So in thinking where is the right journal to submit to, it's very hard to make a decision. And in order to help an author to do so, we've been adding some of the journal metrics. So you can see, for example, on the insides whether a journal is interdisciplinary or not, whether it's international, how many weeks the review time is, how many authors come from different countries, what the demographics are. In addition, we add a lot of new content to the journal homepages. So in the form of virtual special issues, which are thematic, it gives you an indication as an author of the types of articles that the journal is publishing and trending topics. The editors also make a selection of the best papers, so the ones that they feel bring a lot of value to the journal or new emerging topics that they would like to highlight are also added to the journal homepage. What we term the article of the future really means article enhancements. So moving away from the static PDF, we've been adding a lot of new initiatives to the HTML, that the online experience is better. So if you're working, for example, with GIS and you've got a lot of data which you'd like to convert to a Google map, you can add a KML file to your submission and have an interactive map within the abstract of your article. You may be asked to publish your paper open access. There is a perception that papers that are published open access are more successful in terms of their reach or of their usage. We've done a lot of analysis on this since open access started a couple of years ago, and there's no proof to date that open access articles are more highly downloaded or more highly cited than subscription articles, because the majority of people who are reading your articles are fellow researchers who have access to the content via their online institutional subscriptions. However, I did want to highlight the fact that open access is available for almost all of our journals, as they operate in what we term a hybrid model. So you can publish open access, but if you choose or if you have to pay an open access fee, you can do so, and your article is open access and you can share it. We've enhanced the article with audio and video supplementary data. So when you're submitting your file and all of your source files, you can add a video or an audio file to your article, and that will be next to the abstract. All of this is possible within the submission system. Again, it just goes to enhance the article and explain your research a little bit more to the readers. The same goes for audio slides. This is an initiative we launched 2 years ago with a set of pilot journals. Once your article is accepted, you can create a small presentation of about 10 minutes. And in non-technical terms, you explain the content of your article with a few PowerPoint slides to the reader. So rather than the reader having to go through your article and read it, you can actually talk to them about it and tell them what it's about. And to date, we've noticed that there's a 15% higher usage on articles that have audio slides than articles that don't have audio slides. And as a publisher, we like to promote these audio slides a lot. So we pick out the articles that are enhanced with all of these nice features, and we promote them on various websites like Elsevier Connect, for example. So a lot of the online network tools have been emerging over the last couple of years, and it's very hard to keep track, I'm sure, as a researcher, on how best to keep up with these, because I know that everybody gets a lot of emails about various outlets for sharing your research. So I wanted to take some time to talk these through and show you the best places to highlight your research once it's published. We've been working with MENDELEY for a couple of years. MENDELEY is similar to ResearchGate, for example. Originally started as a reference manager tool. It's now effectively a reference manager and communication tool. It's very similar to Facebook in its layout and its operations, where you can discuss and share your research. This is an example of what a MENDELEY page looks like. So within Science Direct, for example, if you have your article published, you can click Save to MENDELEY, and we automatically import all of your research straight to MENDELEY. In doing so, you can create your own library, and other readers and authors can discover your work within MENDELEY based on the keywords that you implement. You can also create groups like the one that I have here to show the documents that you're adding to your library, and try to generate discussion around those topics. For example, you can comment or you can like editions. What you do when you start in MENDELEY, Again, very similar to Facebook or ResearchGate, is building a profile, following public groups, joining public groups. This exposes yourself to fellow researchers and other interdisciplinary researchers, and allows you to engage with various networks and discover new research. You can also have teams. So for example, if you're working in an international group, you can add files to a private group within MENDELEY and discuss them. So you can imagine if you're working with a big group on an international project, it's not always easy to share information and to discuss it. You could use, for example, Google Hangouts, but this brings everything under one roof and allows you to share, amend, annotate, and discuss ongoing files, research, etc. So it's very, very easy. A lot of institutes now have an institutional subscription to MENDELEY, which allows even more in-depth sharing of research. And obviously, the whole idea of having your research in MENDELEY is that it's easy to share. A couple of years ago, we started highlighting per author, so rather than on a journal basis, what the downloads and the citations are, but on a researcher level. And we've been working very actively to try and drum down all of the statistics to show on an individual basis what the contribution is of a researcher to a particular journal. So you can see here, for example, within the MENDELEY statistics, how many times as a researcher your articles have been viewed or cited over the last 12 months or over the last month or per article. And I'll take you through some of those slides now. If you log in to your profile on MENDELEY, this is what you'll see. A certain number of publications registered to you and in your library, all of the associated citations, all of the views that those articles have had, and how many readers there are. We don't actually share or show who's reading your research on MENDELEY, but you can see how many readers have actually read your PDF or your article that you have in your library. And we're also showing this information on Science Direct. So it's another form of alternative metrics. So moving away from the downloads or the citations, we're now including readership statistics as well. This is also possible to see on a media level. So you can see, for example, if an article has been quoted or used in research, like in The Guardian or any of the national newspapers, we pick up on this and it feeds through into your MENDELEY statistics, and you can see exactly where the source was and what the comments were on that usage in the media. Here you see an example of an article and the statistics for this particular publication, how they fluctuate every month in terms of their views and in terms of their citations. And from MENDELEY, you can click and view the article directly on Science Direct. Again, similar to the total overview, this is the statistics related to the article you just saw and those who are citing or reading. So here you'll see some related reading. This is a feature we have on Science Direct, something that we're incorporating in on an individual level to show what the related reading is to your research and how many people are viewing those articles and where they're viewing them as well. The search terms that they're used. So you can imagine it's very important not to use generic keywords and try and use the ones that are as specific as possible to your research, because it'll be much more effective once other people are looking for it and sharing it. So here you can see, for example, the variation between the MENDELEY readership and the group sharing. So when people add your paper to one of their groups, you obviously get a notification of this. it's not just Elsevier related. You can see an article in Nature Genetics by an author. And here you get the option to view the article on Scopus. So we're bringing all of the Elsevier, but also non-Elsevier material that's linked to your profile, to your MENDELEY or your Scopus profile or your ORCID ID in under one roof. And here again, you see for this particular journal what the citation and readership statistics are on this article. And again, how many times it's being shared and shared in groups. A lot of people are blogging these days in terms of setting up their own WordPress or on institutional blogging sites, etc. This is very, very important in terms of communicating your research, and there's various ways of doing that. And it's quite hard, I'm sure, you know, as an early researcher to try and find out where the best place is to share your research. These are some of the outlets, for example, Twitter, WordPress, Facebook, LinkedIn. Twitter is obviously not quite the optimal place to blog, but it is a good place to share. So when you're trying to reach out to others, try and find where these people are following and they're reading, and see how many times things are being shared. For example, in terms of blogging, it's important to try and drum down your research to an understandable language. We've been working on a small project group called STM Digest, where early career researchers have been working with authors of our journals to translate the research into a digestible format. And we've been publishing that online on MENDELEY over the last couple of years. That's something that we're working much more actively on. You can see here the MENDELEY group that's set up and the early career researchers that are sharing lay summaries of research. And from there, of course, we share this on social media because it needs to be catchy, it needs to be interesting. So social media and blogging needs a different type of language than the article title. And make sure when you're sharing your article that you do have a very catchy, short and strong title that gets picked up on. On the left here you can see we're working with bold metrics. This basically summarizes all of the social media activity for an article, and the colors in the donut connotate the different types of media. For example, blue for Twitter, red for MENDELEY. The shorter the title is and the stronger the title is, the easier it'll get picked up by our journalists. So in terms of thinking about this, there's a lot more information that I couldn't go through in the 19 minutes I've been talking. And in the essence of time, I wanted to provide a link here at the bottom of my presentation to a booklet that we've created. It elaborates a lot more on the topics that I've just been covered, and it's a brochure specifically geared at social impact of research and how to increase that once you've published your paper. So my advice would be to download this PDF by clicking on the link that's here at the bottom of this presentation. It should act as a helpful guide to you in the future on how to optimize the impact of your research. And that's all from my side, so I'm happy to take questions from the moderator and from the audience now.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot for this nice and very interesting presentation. So I just want to mention that all participants after this can download the handouts of the presentations from the handouts tab on the control panel. And now we have one question from Elis Vedlund, who asks if you can speak more about choosing keywords, because you mentioned that we should choose them very precisely and very specific to our research. Right? So can you specify a little more
Yeah,
how to do it?
The keywords should be indeed very specific to your paper. They should summarize it very well and not be generic. And I know that sounds a little bit vague, but it's very important to try and be as specific as possible with the keywords. But the keywords are not the most important part of the article in terms of the search engine optimization tools that we're using to help people to find research. Because what we do now to support the keywords is use highlights. And highlights are effectively, you can see them as newspaper captions. So very snappy summaries of your research. It's not a summary of the abstract, but it's an elaboration of the main findings and the impact that your paper has potentially explained in about 150 words. And you can add 3 or 4 highlights to your paper. So being specific as possible about the keywords is important, and also being very, very accurate and clear in using your highlights to support your article will also help people to find your paper and to increase the visibility and the usability of it.
Okay, thank you for your answer. We have 2 more questions. One from Marie Curie, who's asked regarding what you said, I guess, about MENDELEY. Do you also use academia.edu? So maybe I should rephrase the question. So is there any connection with academia.edu, or is it your competitor?
Yes, it's a competitor indeed. Academia.edu is similar to MENDELEY and ResearchGate, all very similar. Academia.edu is a repository, and a lot of articles have been stored there. The point I think that's important to note is the sharing policy of all publishers. When using academia.edu or any other institutional repository, you're not permitted to share the typeset version, so the final PDF of the published article in the journal. The articles that are shared and added to academia.edu should be the author's final version, so the Word version or the PDF format, and not the final typeset version of the journal article. That's the one difference I think to bear in mind, and that really comes back to the sharing policies of the article.
I see. I just would like to build on this question a little bit. So there are other, let's say, social tools to do the science, ResearchGate. I'm not very familiar with them, but if I remember well, in some of them, you are able to see who is reading your paper. While in MENDELEY, it's not possible, right? Why did you make this choice?
That's correct, yes. I know ResearchGate, they have very complex and deep algorithms that track almost every movement and form of usage within their remit. And they use this to send emails to people who are registered. So, for example, if somebody reads your article, you get a link to say that somebody has read your article. And this is something that MENDELEY deliberately chose not to do for actually privacy reasons, where authors don't necessarily have the choice or want to make the choice to share their article in that way, or to have their names revealed as the readership. So it's really one of the integral parts of MENDELEY in terms of the privacy and the sharing that is protected somewhat for those who have a profile. You can see where people join groups and add and share research, but you can't necessarily see who the readers are, and that's something that MENDELEY don't want to make public.
I see. Okay. Thank you. So we have another very specific question from Maria Dan. So she has published a paper in environmental pollution, and she has done the audio slides with PowerPoint. But finally there was some problem, and the sound was not separated from the slides. So she asked if there is any way to include them still.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. We have a supplier who looks after our audio slides, and I think the best thing to do maybe is to contact me, and I'll follow up with our production department to try and solve that problem. So we can take it offline, and I'd be happy to follow up on that directly.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thanks a lot from her. And we don't have any more questions. I have a very general question. So it seems to me that you are kind of experimenting with different ways of, let's say, highlighting one's research, right? So in your opinion, which of these, so because you have audio slides, videos, graphical abstract, all the social or network tools, let's say, which MENDELEY. So which of these is the most promising?
That's a very good question. Actually, most of the journals now have graphical abstracts as a mandatory part of the workflow. In the past it was optional. Most journals are now adopting mandatory because we've noticed how much of a beneficial enhancement it is and how nice it is to have the graphical abstract there next to the abstract, and the journal editors are also very much in favour of that. So I would say graphical abstract is very important. Also for social media sharing, we see that a tweet with an image is much more successful than just text in a tweet alone. So when you're tweeting, enhancing it with an image is definitely by far more successful. And I think when people can put a visual on something, it sometimes it's more self-explanatory. And again, it saves people time reading a lot of information. In terms of readers finding an article, I would I can't emphasize enough how important the highlights are, because if you want somebody to read your abstract, after the title, the first thing to look at is the highlights. So a lot of authors make the title far too long, and it doesn't make any sense to the reader. So if you keep the title very short, elaborate very specifically on your research, on what it is and what it means in the highlights, and have very specific keywords, you can be guaranteed that the reader will click on the link and read your abstract. So I would say that the keywords, the title, the highlights, and the graphical abstract are all equally very important. And if you have the time to add an audio slide, I would certainly advise doing this, because as I mentioned earlier, we see from the statistics that there's 15% higher usage of those articles, and those citations eventually, or those downloads eventually lead to citations. So I wouldn't pick one or other. I'd say try to do them all if you can. And most journals are asking for all of those features now anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is very interesting. Of course, it means that the researchers not only have to do the research, but also, let's say, work a lot on their communication skills, right? So that they have to be good at some graphical representation that can be catchy, and also choosing the right title. So it's not only about research results, but it's all the rest as well. It's kind of marketing, right?
That's right, because we as a publisher, we publish 1,100 articles every day, and a certain amount of those articles are sent to the media, to the press. But you can imagine that a lot of that effort is focused on the Lancet or the Cell titles, or the very big specific societal impact or health-related titles. If you're waiting for journalists or the media to come and find your research, they might not necessarily always find it. So you need to help them. And when your article is accepted now, you get a link to share your article freely for 50 days. I would say use this link wisely. Share it on LinkedIn, share it on your institutional site via the email with all your contacts. Try and know who the best people in the field are, engage with them, and promote yourself, because you can see as a company, for example, Elsevier, how much time and effort we spend in our marketing and our visibility. But if we didn't do that, maybe less people would find us. And I think it's the same as you're effectively your own brand manager and your own communicator. And by doing that effectively and as much as possible and as well as possible, people will find you. And it really is the way forward. On some grant funding applications now, there is a question where where you're asked to highlight the significance of your research and the contribution your research has made to a journal. So, for example, how many citations has your article contributed to the total within a journal in a given year? So it is very important. What's the social impact of your research? And from the European Commission standpoint, they're obviously very interested to see what the return on investment is for the funding. You know, has it made a difference? Can policy changes be made? Can we change the laws based on the validation of this research?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We have a very last question from Maria Dan again. So she says that she has a research report, so that she considers grey literature, and that has been viewed from almost 3,000 people on academia.edu. But of course, I mean, there's not any ranking for this kind of grey literature. Could you say something about it? So do you also publish reports on MENDELEY, and you have statistics on this?
Yes, absolutely. You can add any type of document to MENDELEY. And again, yes, I see the point about the recognition, but that's exactly why we've set up MENDELEY for this reason, where you have these types of reports that you can see what the usage is. It's very important for your own profiling. A lot of these reports get published on web pages or the like, and they never get found. And we spend a lot of time trying to investigate recognition in a non-traditional sense of things. So where you get citations for full-length articles and review articles. There are so many other different types of publications, also conference proceedings, for example. And we're trying to work hard to show the usage for those and to build them into an individual researcher's profile, so you can show the impact of all of the research you've done in all different types of forms.
Okay, so I thank you very much for your presentation and for answering our questions. I guess that I will hand it over to Lanson now, and then there will be a Q&A session later on. Okay?
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Lan, you are unmuted. Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah. So hello everyone, I'm Lan. I'm the managing editor working for the Environmental Science and Health journals and Elsevier Amsterdam. So myself is also a Marie Curie alumni. I joined Elsevier last February and I got my PhD title last July. During my PhD, I have published 5 articles as first author, and I have given several platform presentations on international conferences and collaborate research with different institutes all over Europe. And I have also got my postdoc offer, but in the end, I think I did great as a PhD, but I decided to leave academia. And today I'm going to talk about the career planning for a PhD, and I hope you find it useful. So I have structured my presentation in 3 aspects. So first, I will talk about why you decide to do a PhD, and second, we are going to talk about a scientific fact about a PhD, and in the end, we are going to talk about what's your choice after you finish your PhD. And so I will give this presentation based on my personal experience, and I really appreciate if you can share your ideas and we can discuss in between. So first, let's start with our first topic. It's why you decide to do your PhD. And some people may say, I really enjoy doing your research, and it's my dream application, and I could be the professor to be, but some other people think a PhD title would help me to find a job later on, to stand out during job interview or other opportunities. But we have to admit that lots of us actually could not find anything else when we graduate from our master. Or some of us just really like the flexibility to stay at school, and we want to stay longer and enjoy our life. So for myself, when I graduated my master, I didn't find a suitable job. So that's when I got the PhD position. I was quite happy to finally have something to working on. I do not intentionally want to do a PhD at that stage. But I think for everyone, when we start our PhD, we all expect the PhD life is going to be similar as our master life and the bachelor life. It's going to be very smooth, and in the end, we can get our title. But in most of the cases, it's not the case. It's not exactly what we imagined. Our emotion actually varies significantly over the time. So when you just join the PhD, you think you are doing great, you feel great, and so your passion for the sciences keep increasing. You read papers and you find exciting about your research topic. But when you start your experiment, you find it's very depressing and it's not exactly what you expected. So your emotion and your passion for the science kind of decreased until you have your first paper published. And the same happens, in between. You would have more emotional variation in between, and until you write your thesis, and when you finally defend your thesis, you feel very great in the end, become a PhD. But you found the PhD life is actually way more exciting, I would say, as you expect. And your supervisors may also have many other requirements for your graduation, like when we graduate, they require you to have 4 publications at least, have 3 platform presentations at international conferences, and plus they also ask you to supervise bachelor students, master students for their thesis. You may feel highly stressed, and your emotion varies all over these years. But meanwhile, you find that many PhD graduates from your institute every year, and some of them could stay in science and others cannot, and some of them even face difficulties to have a job. You start to wonder and doubt, am I able to stay in science forever? Do I really love science? So I took this picture from the PhD comics, and it demonstrates your passion for research. When you were just graduates and you are so excited to become a PhD and you are very excited, but when the time goes by and your passion for the science maybe not the same as you imagined. So if you really love science, maybe it's a really good choice to stay. But if you do not, what you should do? And so you have to really think about before you graduate from your PhD. You would really wondering, is the PhD really help me to stand out or not? How can I compete with master fellows who already have several years of working experience? Am I left out? What should I do if I could not get a postdoc or assistant professorship? So to help you to estimate your situation and suggest possible choice after PhD, I would like to share some scientific facts about PhD. In this figure, you can see that the number of PhD graduated from different disciplines in US over 13 years. As you can see, except education, the number of PhD awarded in all the other fields increased dramatically. However, the percentage of PhD stay in science, this is the next picture. The percentage of PhD stay in science decreased from around 85% in the 1993 to approximately only 70 in 2013. And especially if you check below, the number of PhD start in postdoc or part-time positions increased a lot. That's really frustrating, isn't it? And more and more PhD need to find a job elsewhere outside of academia. And if you compare this with the situation with no commitment and employment of a postdoc study, especially for the life science here, you can see that it's even worse than the average. So if you are still studying life science or doing a research in life science, that means there's like 40% of you would have to find other employment or struggle to find a job. So this data really urges us to be prepared whatever could happen after your PhD. If you do not really love science, you have to really be prepared. Even if you love science, you have to also figure out in advance, like even in the second or third year of your PhD, you shouldn't really just live your life and see what's going on, because after a while you figured you're around your 30s and you couldn't find anything else. It's getting very frustrated. So it's better to find find your outlets and be prepared. So here's let's discuss, if you want to stay in science, here's your career ladder. You start with a PhD, and if you're lucky, you get your postdoc. And nowadays there are many postdoc positions. And then if you work really hard, you get an assistant professorship, and then associate, and finally a professor. So you are, this figure shows exactly you are started as a start as a young scientist until an old professor. That's a very clear and career ladder for everyone. And in order to do this, you have to first, the best, easiest way is to searching existing positions, existing postdoc positions, because the funding is already there, so do not need to draft your own application. So that's most easy thing. But however, you could not really choose your research topic if you apply for existing positions. Otherwise, you need to be really familiar with the funding agency. So what kind of funding all over the world, which one would suit your research topic, how can you apply, and it's better to also map the expertise in your field and try to get their support for the funding application. And for instance, here we use the Marie Curie actions as an example. You can on the website you can find apply now. That's a website I always visit before I find a job. And so you can find a job for you and also try to find partner organizations and try to, if you want to apply funding, that's very useful. But how about the life after outside of academia? If you decide to leave, does that mean your ability is weaker than anyone else staying in science? No, that really doesn't. And the life outside of academia actually could be way more suitable and exciting for many people. What you should do is to be more confident, and you have to believe that actually you have gotten all the important skills during your PhD. For instance, you probably had attended many international conferences and given presentations in front of hundreds of people. That proves you have great communication and presentation skills, which would be very useful and appreciated by many companies. And you probably also participate and practice your communication skills and project management skills when you try to supervise bachelor and master students and maintain your own research at the same time. So your computer skills is normally excellent in most cases because you are young, you are passionate, and lots of companies would like to have you. But the most important thing is you have to really try to know what you want and what kind of ability you have. And in that way, you can just try to match your ability with the job you want. So do not really try to fit in a position, but just let your decide which kind of position you want, and does that really suit you well. So there are several websites I normally used during the job searching. So like careerjet.com and Glassdoor is very good website to identify or to learn, to explore the company culture and about salaries. And LinkedIn is also a very useful platform to put your CV on, and lots of people try to hire people from there. So it's really about how to doesn't matter which path you would like to choose in the end, either stay or leave science. The most important thing is gain all transferable skills like scientific background, project management, writing skills, presentation, later working, and interpersonal skills. All this is like transferable skills. That's what you need to learn during your PhD, and in that case, you are ready for anything else in your future. That's all based on my personal experience here. And yeah, in the end, I would also like to share a link with you. It's about the publishing campus of Elsevier. On this website, you can find the colleague of career planning have more information about how to plan your career in advance before you graduate, and I hope you find it helpful. And thank you very much for listening, and I'm ready to take any questions.
Okay, thanks a lot, Lan, for this nice presentation. Actually, I like very much the comic. And yeah, so for the moment, we haven't received any question for the attendees. So I have one. So you made a list of transferable skills, and so whenever I attend these career seminars and so on, there's a huge list of transferable skills. Of course, I mean, depending also on the field of your research, you would be able to develop some of them. It's very difficult to develop all of them. So could you give some suggestion on also how the people should choose the transferable skills that they would need for their future career?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. So first, you need to know what you really want, what kind of job you really want to do in your future, and not really consider what kind of job in the field. Because in that case, you are trying to fit in your job. That's not the ideal situation. You have to first set your goal, think about your dream application. And in that way, you will try to identify several skills needed for this position. For instance, when I did my PhD, initially I didn't really know what I want, so I just tried to be prepared as much as possible. I did all research I have to do in my home institute, but meanwhile I still have a half year in the end. So I said, okay, maybe, if you want to stay in science or you want to leave, it's better to communicate with all the expertise in the field. I contact several professors in UK and in Spain, so in different regions, and see if they have any research topic or if there are any small project we could work together. And so in the end, I got this funding from one UK professor. It's a very famous one in the field. And I went there for 2 months, and we carried out research just in 2 months, and we published very nice article within that. So sometimes it's just you have to explore the possibilities. You could not just limit yourself in your container and think about, oh, I have done everything I could. Yeah, I can graduate now. But you have to think about, okay, how can I adapt? How can I really, think about the next step I want to make? So in this case, actually, I made a lot of contaction with professors in UK, and I also collaborate in between with the institute in Spain. And in that case, we also collaborate within 2 months and publish an impact factor of 7 in a journal of impact of 7. So that was all very successful. Sometimes it's just the way you think, and you have to really leave the PhD for a while, and you can sit from a far distance and see what you want. Is this really suitable for me? Because I understand not the PhD is really a struggle, and they think they got a PhD, they have to do some, very high-level job. If they leave science, they feel kind of a loser. But actually, that's not the case. You have to be very confident. If you are able to get your PhD, that means you can also do very good in other applications. Yeah.
Yes, I fully agree on this point, because I mean, the fact that one makes a change of his career is not a failure. Sometimes it's a success, because it's just broadening his own opportunities. Otherwise, I mean, you can just try to stay in academia, but sometimes there is a whole bunch of other opportunities out there that would fit to one's background.
Yes.
So we have another question. It's rather a comment from Richard Penninger. So he first thanks you for your talk, and then he says, no matter how good your skills or qualities are, you need to apply for the right position at the right time. So would you agree on that?
Yes. Sometimes they say you have to be prepared, but the opportunity is also very important. They would say actually opportunity would take like 17% decision for your career. So, but the thing is, if the opportunity comes up, but you are not prepared, that's a shame. So that's why we should always be prepared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's fine. Okay, I have a very last questions. There are not any more from attendees. Yeah. So you just mentioned it briefly, but so my experience is that all the thing that you mentioned in the slide before this, I think. Could you go back one slide?
This one?
Yes. So where to start? There is one point missing, I think, that is about networking.
Yeah.
So what you think? What's your experience about networking?
Networking is absolutely important. Actually, I was trying to include that in the second point. Try to attending local recruiting events, because you can get to know people and you can introduce yourself, so people can know you better. Even if they do not have an opportunity at the moment, they would remember you or keep your CV, and later you would have your chance. So networking is always very important, and you can put also your if you are looking for a job, you should really update your LinkedIn profile and get everyone notified that you are looking for something. Sometimes your friends or your previous colleagues could also help you to find a job opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. So let me just add something about that. So I thank you for your time, for the presentation, for answering all the questions. I would like to add that within our association there is possibility of networking, both online, just by contacting people that other members think have an interesting profile, but also personally. So there are national chapters that organize meetings during the year, and it's a good opportunity for networking within one's country. And also there is the General Assembly every year, which gathers together people from all over Europe and also members from all over the world, actually. And so the General Assembly this year will be in Venice in beginning of March. The details are on our portal. So if any of the attendees will be interested in taking part to the General Assembly, just log in the portal pages and there will be all the information available. I would like to thank you again, all the speakers, and also the attendees for their interest in this very nice talks.
Thank you, Mark.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. And the video of this webcam will be available on YouTube after our meeting and on the MCAA web portal for those willing more to review the key elements of this meeting. Thank you.